Hi everyone, just before we get into this episode of Type 1 I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you so much for pressing play. I really hope you enjoy this episode. If you do, don't forget to hit subscribe and you'll be notified when new episodes come about. You can find us across podcast land on Spotify, iTunes, all those good places as well. Secondly, anything you hear on this podcast should not be taken as medical advice. I am, of course, not a professional, and you do need to seek advice from your healthcare team before making any changes to your diabetes management. And lastly, if you want to say hello, I do have an Instagram page specifically for the Type 1 podcast. You can find it at Studio Type 1. That's at Studio Type 1, the number, on 1, the number. And you can also come and say hello and follow me on my personal page, which is at Miss Jen Grieves. And all of that will be noted in the episode description. Hi everyone, and welcome to Type 1, a podcast that delves into the obscure, complex and challenging world of life with Type 1 diabetes. I'm Jen Grieves, and each week, with the help of some brilliant guests, I'll be showing that there is no normal when it comes to handling this whopper of a chronic condition, because we're all pretty much figuring out the messiness of day-to-day life with diabetes as we go. And most of all, even though it doesn't always feel like it, we are absolutely not alone. My guest today is Hannah McCook. Hannah is a professional golfer living in Nethy Bridge in sunny Scotland. Currently on tour, Hannah has been playing golf since the age of just 6, and she recently announced she's adding coaching to the mix as well. Now, life as a professional athlete isn't easy for anyone, should I say, but Hannah has pursued her dream career alongside Type 1 diabetes since she was diagnosed at the age of just 8 years old. Hello, Hannah.
Hello, how are we?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. All good.
Thanks so much for joining the podcast. How are you doing today? How's it been?
Yeah, it's good. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. But I'm in sunny Scotland. The sun is out, but it is, as we say, blowing a hoolie today. So, yeah, it's pretty windy. Although, to be fair, the winter's not been as bad as what people might think it's been. We've been pretty fortunate. Almost the further north you go, the better it's been, I think.
Oh,
So
lovely.
I'm going to claim it as if, we've seen more sun than we might normally do. So, yeah, there we go.
We'll take it. We've got to take it, us Brits.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I love to hear it as well. Like your love for Scotland. I'm going to get onto that in a bit as well. And also your voice is made for this podcast. And I've thought that before when we've been speaking.
Oh,
I'm
really?
just like, I could listen to you forever. So
Thanks.
This bodes well. And how are the BGs, the blood glucose levels doing? Are they behaving this week so far?
They're okay actually.
Yeah.
Today they're pretty steady today, but a little bit higher than I probably want, but in a pretty straight line. So I'm not really fighting with it. I'm just letting it roll. I do need to change my Omnipod later, so that's probably why. And it's been beeping at me for the last 2 hours to change it, but I run it to maximum end of course. So
yeah, same. And I asked, just as I asked you that, I got a glucose alert. So
oh, there we
we're
go.
rocking over here. Yeah.
Where phones
the
are
fun
vibrating,
never stops.
it never stops. It's always going on in the background. But yeah, no, they're okay. There was a disaster, I think maybe Saturday night. High for a while, and then suddenly at 3 a.m. it's like, yeah, now you're gonna go really low, and I'm like, okay, let's go. So like, Dexcom said low, like literally the letters, and I'm like, oh my goodness.
No.
So then obviously what do? You just pile in as much sugar as you can, and within a few hours you're back up again, and it's just like...
Off you go the other way.
Off
That's
we go.
the worst. How do you feel when you're LO? Because I actually had one of those last week, and I don't have so much hyper-awareness now.
Okay.
Obviously, I was like, wow, seeing some stars over here. Yeah. How does that feel for you?
To be honest, I actually felt pretty rough. I think because I'd been high for a few hours before. I was obviously still in that I'm high bubble, and then I did feel pretty sick actually, to the point I was like, I don't think I can actually consume sugar, so I got the good old glucose stop, hypo stop out, and just rubbed it into my own gums, and away we went. 20 minutes later,
Wow,
I
and
was
it's
like,
so incredible. Like, we're just out here
yeah,
saving our own lives
I know.
in the
Literally.
midst of it all.
Low key 3 a.m. in the
And then,
morning, rubbing stuff in my gums, going, please, please make it to 6 a.m. this morning. And then you get up and
bless
you don't
you.
even think about it. You just get on with it, don't you?
No,
Crack on.
off your day goes like nothing ever happened. And
Literally.
love you for saying that, because I think it can be so easy to think that everyone else is getting it so right all the time. And I had one of those weeks last week as well. So thanks for putting that out there and keeping it real. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
not
there's
great that you went through
absolutely.
that, but
I don't even know if there is. When people ask you at the dentist, oh, how's your control? Is it pretty good? I'm like, what do you class as good? Because I try my best, and I'm not in hospital with it, so I'm guessing that's all right. That's what I'm
I'm
going to
going to
class as good.
say that's
Yeah.
pretty damn great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll take that for
We'll
sure.
take that. Yeah.
Okay. So fingers crossed we keep the levels flat, and we'll
I'm
see
sure
how
we'll be
we
fine.
go.
Yeah,
But
we'll be fine.
yeah, we'll be fine. So there's a lot to get through. I mean, we've already illustrated how much there is to all of this without even getting started yet. So if we can take it back to the beginning, I don't know if you can remember much about that time, but I'd like to know, first of all, where you were at with your golf when your diagnosis came about, because starting to play at just 6, that's so young, and I love that. And your diagnosis came at the age of 8. So
Yeah.
I'm guessing you were playing for fun. Like, where were you at with golf at the time? Do you remember?
I remember I was just playing very ad hoc random rounds with my brother, for fun. But at the same time, to be honest, I was actually doing pretty much every other sport that I had the chance to do. So I was skiing. I was mainly when it was February, I was diagnosed. I was doing a lot of skiing at that point. I was doing PE at primary school, whatever that involved. Probably leapfrogs and all that stuff.
Yeah. The plimsolls were out in
Plimsolls
force.
were out in force. Like duck, duck, goose, and all these things were going on. But yeah, I mean, I guess I was playing a little bit of golf. Yeah, I do remember the diagnosis very well, like it was almost yesterday. But I don't remember to what detail of everything else I was doing. I was 8. Now what's that? 23 years. So as we've
Yeah,
already discussed,
interesting.
you think you've done it for a while, but you still don't fully know sometimes what's going on. Which
Absolutely
is
not.
fun. It's really fun.
Just really keeping it interesting while you're trying to manage a professional career and everything else you've got going on in your life,
Absolutely. Yeah.
And golf as a sport, is it
hmm
in Scotland, is it quite common to pick something like that up? Because it never came into my world, but that doesn't mean it doesn't come into other people's worlds. Do you know what I mean? And I liked how you casually dropped skiing in there. I'm like, let's all go to
Yeah,
Scotland.
I know. Yeah. To be honest, there's you think Scotland, home of golf, and everyone's going to play golf, but there is it totally depends where you're from, and obviously how fortunate you are with families and what's around you. But living in Nethy since I was 6, and my parents were building a house across the road from a golf course that was just a little 9-hole where my brother and I just escaped there all the time. So it was like, oh, go and play golf, and some of your other friends are playing golf, so you're in a safe place, and crack on. But there were a few friends of mine at school that played, but not huge amounts, to be honest. But then when I started to play a bit more and bit more, there was when I was playing in Scotland teams and things, it was generally people from, Central Belt kind of direction. But yeah, there's a
Interesting.
few people from the Highlands. But I mean, I guess most of our events and things when I was growing up and starting to play more, it was all further south. So it was like you've got to travel further. But I was fortunate that my parents were in a position to help and wanted to help take me there. So very lucky.
Yeah. And running over the road to go and swing a golf club as a 6, 8-year-old sounds
Yeah,
like a dream,
I
just off you
know.
go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We
100%.
used to go. Summer holidays, Easter holidays was walk across the road, meet. There's my brother and I, and then maybe 4 or 5 other kids, guys, that we would play 9 holes. Have chips and cheese for our lunch, and then go back out and do it all over again until it was pretty much dark. So, And if it weren't doing that, we were cycling to the park to meet other friends. So it was, we were pretty lucky with the space that we've got growing up here. Mm-hmm.
Lovely. And you mentioned there that in the blur of childhood, you do actually remember quite a lot about your diagnosis. So do you mind telling me a little bit about how that unfolded or what you remember?
Yeah, I mean, I remember Mum and Dad were building this house, and I remember being sick every hour this Sunday night and feeling obviously pretty awful. um, but being sick by the point, it's 3 a.m. and there's nothing else to be sick with, you're like, what's wrong with me? And I remember in the kind of 10 days beforehand, just being so thirsty all the time and drinking like anything that could quench your thirst. It was like Mum or my brother would have a sweet tea and I'd be like stealing it because I'm like, oh, that's so good because it's taking my thirst away. But then that's obviously making you worse because it's just giving you even more sugar. And then this fresh orange juice that Mum and Dad used to get, and I was like, oh, that's so good. And they're like, you need to, like, why are you drinking so much? And then I was obviously peeing so much. And then I think Mum had, obviously, they both, I mean, a many parent, will blame themselves for these things happening, which it's obviously not their fault that we were diagnosed. But she's like, oh, I should have noticed it sooner and all these things. And I'm like, well, I mean, it was only a few days of what was really like, suddenly, like, Hannah's not well. And then I was sick that night. Monday morning, she phoned the doctor. And I remember sitting with her when she phoned the doctor because there was an electrician in our house fitting the oven. And he was like, is Hannah okay? As I'm sitting on the sofa like, I'm not in school today. And the doctor said, I'm too busy. You need to bring her to me. So we had to drive, 6 miles to the doctor's. I think she looked at me, did a urine sample, and that was it. I was in an ambulance from Grantham to Inverness. And within, minutes, they're like, well, here's some insulin. This is what you've got to do. But fortunately, the paramedic, his son, who I didn't know at the time, but because we went to different primary schools, but he was also diabetic. So we went to secondary school together. So he was giving my mum all this chat in the ambulance, being like, listen, it's hard, but she'll be fine. So I think from that first 10 minutes of even getting that, it was like, okay, we'll be all right, which is pretty good.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a frame of reference. And what must have been such a scary, because that all happened so quickly, like you say.
Yeah.
When the symptoms present themselves, it's like, this is now here. It's very serious. And in the blur of wondering what's going on, what on earth has happened to your daughter who's suddenly in an ambulance, like to have that reassurance and that frame of reference from a medical professional as well,
totally.
I can imagine must have been quite a comfort to your mum.
Sure. It was comforting for her. I think but then you get to hospital and it's like you're rushed in and the road was really bumpy, so the ambulance was like, you're getting thrown around. I was like, I already feel sick, I don't need any more of this. And then it was a trainee nurse or doctor and tried to put the cannula in my hand and broke the needle. And I'm, 8 years old. Like, I don't want a needle in my hand. As obviously just lost however many kilograms in the last few days of weight. Your probably hands with bones are probably sticking out anyway. And then they put them in both your arms and you're like, oh, what now? And then, I guess you get fed with this what feels like rotten food, and you start to feel a little bit better because you're obviously getting insulin. So like, oh, this is great. And 4 days later, you're sent away with a welcome pack of welcome to diabetes and crack on with it.
It's wild, isn't it?
Wild.
I was 8 as well. I got sent home the same day, but I had day visits every day, for a week. So I think that was obviously just the way that my hospital did it. But you come out with, literally like some leaflets and this medicine that has so much, like, wields so much power over you, and you have no idea what's going on. It's mad. Do you remember those first injections?
Oh, yeah. I remember just like almost like, and my mum, bless her, like didn't like needles at all. So she had to instantly like get over that to help / do my injections for me. Which she did, pretty remarkably, really. But I remember then just doing injections on my teddy bears just to be like, is this what we do? Is this how we do it? Before you kind of put this, this very expensive liquid that saves your life into yourself that could go horribly wrong if you do it wrong. Mental.
It still blows my mind when
I
you
know.
hear someone else say that, and it's such a common. Well, it is the common story. It's the only story. You go off and off you go. Yeah, it's funny you bring up like the leaflets and the stuff. I remember having like boxes of things and all these different medical devices. I remember watching this video with these two kids telling me like there was a seesaw and the glucose was at one side and the insulin was another, and then there was like a video game like trying to make it cool and fun and trying to teach me how to do it.
Yeah.
It's really funny, like quite kind of vivid, all these weird
Yeah.
memories. And like at school, when you're that age at 8, like you have quite a set thing going
Totally.
on, don't you? You go to school,
Yeah.
you got your friends, you come home. This sort of explodes in front of you, all these new things and this new
Totally.
language.
And then you've got the parents, like mum's gone into school to meet the teacher to be like, this is what we've got to do. They've got a little box in the office here that's got snacks. We've got like, all this stuff. It's just like, what the heck has happened? In the space of a week, we're doing this differently. But,
Yeah,
you get a little
100%.
Mars bar before your PE class and you're, yeah, this will do. I can manage this.
What was it about Mars bars? I had Mars
I
bars
don't
as
know.
well.
I know.
I love this. We were like opposite ends of the island, and
Yeah.
still the
Still
thinking
the
was
same things.
exactly the
Yeah.
same. Yeah, and I was a few years before you as well. That's so funny. So, do you remember yourself how you kind of got on with it? Was it just a case of, okay, this is what I have to do now? Do you remember being scared or like trying to
I do
explain it to
remember.
friends or anything like that?
Yeah, I remember being in the hospital and well, I don't remember the fact that mum and dad said I didn't speak for two of the days, that I just kind of went on mute. That was like, and I don't remember that at all. I just remember having pea and ham soup 3 times a day and hating every single bit of it. But I remember them. Well, they've said that I was quiet. I didn't say anything because I think I sat there thinking like, I'm meant to be going to the ski club this weekend. I'm not going to get that. I'm not going to get to go and play golf or do football or whatever. So mum stayed in the hospital. But dad would come home every night, and apparently he came home one night and went on good old Google, which in 2002 was probably pretty fresh off the start anyway, and just typed in, I think it was diabetic athletes or something, and Sir Steve Redgrave popped up. So dad came in the next day to the hospital and being like, listen, I know it's not what you want, etc., but Sir Steve Redgrave has also got what you've just got. And I think apparently, I don't remember. I do remember him coming, like saying the words, but I don't remember my reaction was. Apparently, I just sat up and just said, "He's my twin," and then apparently didn't stop talking, and I was fine. And that was me. I was away, being like, "All right, sound, I can do this." Yeah.
Oh, I think that shows the power of having role models and
100%.
being able to see yourself. Yeah, that's incredible. I think he was the first person that I was presented to me. I think he was kind of the only person for a while because we didn't have social media and all these things.
Totally.
Like
Yeah.
he said, I remember my mum had his book or his
Okay.
autobiography on the nightstand. It wasn't given to me, and I
Mhm.
certainly wasn't. I was doing a lot of hobbies, but there was nothing that, oh, maybe she'll be a sports person or anything like that.
Yeah.
But that was the only frame of reference I think we
Mhm.
had for a very, very long time. But how incredible that kind of gave you.
Yeah. Totally. I just was like, oh well, if he can just win Sydney 2000 2 years ago for his 5th medal, I'm sure I can still go on a golf course in Nethy or go skiing up Cairngorm. I'm sure I'll be fine. And then that following weekend, I don't think I went skiing that first weekend, but 8 days later I was back with the ski club skiing with all my friends again. Off I went. Just
Oh,
like
that's
that.
so good.
Yeah.
That's
It's like,
so good to hear. And I think that's probably reassuring for a lot of people to hear, especially if they're parents of kids who've been newly diagnosed. And you are kind of the Sir Steve Redgrave in your world now, like showing the
yeah,
way and
I'd
as
like
a
to
professional
think so.
athlete.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd like to think even just
100%.
one or two kids that are in the same place I was, 23 years ago, are like, oh, if she can do that, then yeah, whatever, we can give it our best shot as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And with the golf, do you remember the time when you started to think, okay, I really like doing this. I'm going to pursue this a bit more intensely or like more regularly? Like, what was it about the sport that you liked?
I I do remember, I was playing in Nethy as a junior, and Mum would come, like the first couple of years after diagnosis, Mum would come for a walk with me on a Friday afternoon, and she would just make sure I was, eating or not eating if it was, the other way. And just because it was playing with the guys all the time that were all quite like a few years older than me. So, now I wouldn't obviously be bothered about telling everyone what's going on, but when you're, 9 years old and you're playing with boys that are 12, 13, I don't want to tell them I don't feel well. I'm just going to, before you know it, you'd probably just collapse. So Mum was there with me till I was probably, about maybe 11 or 12. So I was like, oh, I feel comfortable doing this myself. I'll be fine. But I think maybe I did just keep playing and keep playing, and golf is one of those sports. I mean, like every sport, the more you do, obviously the better you get, and you get more addicted because you're getting better. And I wanted to still be at that point. I wanted to be a skier. I wanted to, go to the Winter Olympics, do all that stuff. But financially, my parents went, we can't help and afford to, send you to Europe for Eastern October holidays when you're only, 13 years old. I was like, no, I get that. That's fine. I'll just go across the road and play golf. Little did I know that then it's taking me to every continent bar Antarctica to play golf. But
Wow.
At that point, I was like, oh yeah, I can do it from home, or I can do it across the road from school. Or, so I just kept playing and kept playing, and then I got asked to go to a Northern Counties day, and then I got asked to go to a Scottish, selection day. And at that point, I was like, oh yeah, this is pretty fun. Maybe I could keep going with this. But I was older than, well, if it was my first time playing for the under-16 Scotland team. I was maybe 15, and everyone else had done it since we're like 11. So I was a bit later getting into that than a lot of them were, which is maybe why I did keep going, because I didn't burn out when I was 18 or 19. I was like, I was kind of just getting to that peak when I was in my early 20s. So yeah, I just kept going and kept going, and then when I went decided about going to uni, I wanted to study sport but play golf, mainly play golf, with the idea that maybe one day I would turn professional, and yeah, here we are.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Just like that. No,
just
many,
like
many
that.
hours, days, years, weeks, months of training and dedication.
Grinding, yeah.
Yeah, from that young age, you had that focus and that kind of motivation, I guess, to keep playing the sport that you loved. How did your diabetes and your management of diabetes feed into that? Was it something that you then wanted to pay attention to make sure you could play golf, or was it something that you said, at first you weren't talking about it so much? Like, can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think just, being diabetic, we all, we chase like perfection when reality it's actually not possible. And I think with sport, especially golf, it's probably the same in every sport, but we all go back the next day because we want perfection, and we don't ever get it either. Like, it's so similar. It's almost the same thing. Sometimes I'm talking about one thing and I'm like, wait, is that golf or diabetes I'm talking about? So I think they go so hand in hand that I think I've just almost, they can't actually separate that. I've always been like, this is what I'm, almost destined to do. By trying to each day chase that perfection that we'll never get. Which then in some days is bad because, you want it and it's just like, well, this is not going to happen. But it's just constantly, and I've always, worked really hard at, playing golf or whatever sport, but also then trying to be as best as I can be with the diabetes stuff. But I think also because golf, I know it can't be great every day. I accepted that years ago that diabetes isn't going to be great every day. And then if it's not, it's not, but you've tried your best, so what else can you do? I think just the way they're so similar, yeah, I don't know, but yeah, they're both literally take up so much of the same brain space at the same time. It's funny. Yeah.
That is so interesting. Yeah, because I sort of think about mindset and sport and the discipline you need, and you have to have discipline to some extent with type 1 diabetes. But yeah, I would be, I mean, I'm not a professional sports person, but I would be similar in the sense of like, I think type 1 diabetes just kind of made me unafraid to give things a go,
Yeah.
because I have to do diabetes. I don't get a
Mm-hmm.
choice. And the outcome, there's only so much I can control in that.
Totally. Mm-hmm.
So if I've done all the things I need to do, it's just sometimes it's not your day. Do you know what I mean? And that doesn't mean it's not frustrating.
Totally.
But it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting to hear you make that comparison with professional sport, with golf as well.
Yeah.
And do you still feel like that now, 23 years on, with type 1
Yeah.
diabetes and golf?
I'd say more so now, actually. The more, because, you know, the older you get, the wiser you get, apparently, and all these things come into, you're just like, oh, flipping heck, that's like the same thing. But now it's getting that, like, you know, we're doing things of like, have I not performed well today because my diabetes wasn't great today, or was my diabetes not great today because I was more stressed in the golf course? Like, what is, you know, where's the chicken and the egg in this circle? Which one has caused the other one to be off? You know, like adrenaline just massively affects my blood glucose. Probably does yours as well. I'm just like,
Yeah, 100%.
you know, pre-tournament morning, it's like, okay, how much insulin do you need? That basically is treating me like water. But then you don't want to take too much because then you'll come crashing down. So it's like, yeah, it's just getting that. Have I gone up because I've got adrenaline, or is it my pod's not working, or, you know, all these other, what's happening and what's causing that to happen, basically. And then you get the good days of, I actually played really well, but my blood glucose was awful. Maybe I should have them awful. What do I want it to be like?
Yeah. There's only so much you can kind of make rhyme or reason, right?
Yeah,
but it's
exactly.
frustrating. I can imagine you need to be on, you know, peak performance when you step out there. And like you said, there's only so much with diabetes that you can extract. It is kind of one and the same. I used to try and sort of see my diabetes as like on the side of life, but actually it's just all meshed in. It's so much
there
in my hormones. It's there. Yeah. And that's not to say I am only diabetes, type 1 diabetes,
totally.
But I think for me now, I've just stopped trying to extract diabetes from everything else because it's so woven into the fabric of like my body, my mind, my outlook, like everything, you know.
How you feel every, you know, couple of hours, how you wake up feeling in the morning. And I'm the same. I've always been like, oh, it's just coming along for the ride. But at the same time, it's mainly there. It's there the whole time. I mean, it's never going to go, unfortunately. But it's just both of us, we both obviously accepted that that's what it is. That's better than trying to be like, oh yeah, it's there, but I'll deal with it later. You know, you might do that if you're out for a pizza and your bloods are going up. You're like, oh yeah, I'll fix that in a wee while. Don't worry about it. But
yeah, we know what's coming.
We know what's happening, but you're still aware of what's going on. You know, you're still thinking about it.
This episode of Type 1 is sponsored by Insulet, the makers of Omnipod tube-free insulin pump therapy. I've personally used pod therapy to manage my type 1 diabetes for years, and using Omnipod 5 automated insulin delivery has improved my diabetes management significantly with less diabetes decisions and, of course, no multiple daily injections. How? Well, Omnipod 5 automatically adjusts my insulin every 5 minutes to help keep me in range, allowing life outside of type 1 diabetes to get bigger. If you want to find out more, head to omnipod.com. So I'm wondering then for you whether, and you can tell me, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the key is in kind of preparing for all eventualities when it comes to being on the course. How do you go about preparing, and what is the key for you in terms of being able to perform no matter what your blood sugars are doing that day or what's beeping? You know, how have you come to learn?
I mean, for a start, my golf bag's probably the heaviest out of everyone. You know, there's extra snacks that will never get eaten that are in there just in case they might need to be eaten.
Rotting away.
There's extra pods. There's tape to tape it on if it's going to fall off. There's another CG. There's all these extra bits that are there just in case. You know, we travel and my rucksack's full and everyone's like, what have you got? And I'm like, oh, I've got spare Dexcom, I've got spare Omnipod, I've got injections in case none of that works, I've got a blood glucose sensor for my finger prick in case that doesn't work, I've got food, I've got this, something like, what? And I'm like, yeah, it's not just, our mental space it's taken up, it's our physical space as well. But, once I've got everything kind of set in my bag and I'm all, I'm ready to go, it is just, again, knowing that I've come to know that adrenaline does what it does to me, and accepting that's going to happen, and then just try and forget about it. But sometimes actually thinking about it makes me forget about playing golf, which is good because, I don't know what you're like, but I'm an overthinker with everything. So there's too much time thinking about one of the things. It's like, oh my goodness. So if I'm actually trying to blend them together, it kind of sometimes does help. But yeah, it's just a case of not worrying that it's there, and if it's going to go high, it's going to go high. But I've got everything with me for whatever eventuality is going to happen, and everyone around me knows as well.
Yeah, and I'd love to come on to that, like how that has been kind of factored into your team and your training and things like that. How does it work on the course if you do know that you're going high or you're going low? Do you have like time consideration to correct, to make adjustments?
Yeah, I think being the key words, because I've never actually done it. I've I've had a couple of pump failures over the last, I don't know, touch wood, only a couple whilst I've been out on the course. And the girls I'm with are, like, oh, totally fine, just take your time, whatever. Well, and then they're because they don't see it, they almost then panic and they're like, are you okay? Is everything? I'm like, I'm absolutely fine. I just need to change this thing that's on my arm. And they're like, oh, are you okay? Do we need to get help? I was like, no, like, don't worry till I worry. That's the time that you're allowed to worry. And they're like, all right, okay. Are you sure you're fine? I was like, yeah, I'll be okay. Just leave me alone to get this changed, and then we can continue. And there's been times that I've been low that in hindsight I probably should have said, to the referee or someone, being like, I'm got a low blood glucose and I probably need 10 minutes just to, get some more life back in me effectively. But I just continue on. I just keep going, and which, yeah, it's not been the best actually, because there was 2 seasons ago, or maybe once last year, that I kept going, and it, in reality it cost me quite a few euros because I lost however many shots just from not really being aware of what I was doing. And I should have stopped, but I didn't want to bother everyone. I didn't want to get in people's way. I didn't want to make other girls stop from their routine. I didn't want to affect what they were doing. So I was just like, well, it's going to affect me. I'll just keep going, but it won't affect them. But they're like, you should have stopped. And I'm like, no, it's fine. Don't worry about it. It's only cost me however many €100 or whatever, but we're fine. We'll get on with it. We'll come again next week and try again. So, yeah.
That's really hard, the reality of something. You're there to play the sport, you're there to be in the zone, and you're busy thinking about not only this extra thing that you're dealing with on top of it, but how that's impacting everyone else around you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough and very gracious of you.
Oh, thanks. Because sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish I played, a team sport that if I'm low or high, I'll just get subbed off and someone else can take over and it's fine. But when you're doing an individual sport, fortunately, I'm doing an individual sport, but I can carry that much food and sugar with me. Whereas, if you're running marathons and stuff, you cannot, when you're running, carry what I can carry around a golf course. Put it that way. So. It's a benefit that I
A
do
ready-made
that.
toolkit. You're literally bringing it with you.
Yeah. So yeah,
Love
but
that.
yeah, I've definitely said to myself, this summer, if that's going to happen, just take 10 minutes. It might be all it needs just to get over that initial I'm low feeling, and then continue. So yeah.
Yeah. And I'd love to talk a bit then about kind of your support network, and obviously you're traveling a lot with type 1
Mhm.
diabetes, and just how it is obviously you living with the condition, but there's all these people around you and also helping you with your training, your mindset, your nutrition, the gym, everything else.
Mhm.
So just speak to me a little bit about this kind of feeling of being supported, because I think for a lot of people, and certainly something I've experienced, is that isolation of nobody gets this, nobody understands, and that's true, but that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean that people can't support you and help you in their way without actually living with it themselves.
Yeah, totally. I mean, people, they're all there to support, and yeah, we say, as nice as we can be to say thanks for your support, and they really, unless you've got it, you really don't know what it's like. But you see this front view of like, whoa, that's that's what's going on, and they're there to help. And I'm very fortunate that my parents and my brother and his partner and my boyfriend Sean are all very supportive with, like, if I'm at home when I need some sugar, or I need, like, Sean changed my pump from the other night because I was trying to write an assignment. I was like, do me a favour and just change my pod for me, will you? So he just did it, literally sitting next to me
Oh, I
as
love
I'm
that.
typing on my laptop, being like, and he's like, is that enough? Is that the bubbles gone? I'm like, yeah, that's fine, that'll do, crack on. So it's just these little things that it's like saved me 5 minutes of my day to be like, oh, you can help me with that. Actually, just do it for me, will you? And obviously my mum and Sean have, the follow up on Dexcom, so they can see and they can hear what's going on. But when there's three of us in the house, and if I'm high and their phone's on loud, I'm like, someone's phone's going out the window if it doesn't get muted, because this is getting I know I'm high. I don't need everyone's phone to tell me I'm high. But no, they're all very supportive, which I'm very fortunate for. And when I'm on the road, I stay with generally the same girls all the time, who I've known for years, who all know what I'm kind of dealing with, to the point of what they see. And then they're always like, what do we do if you need help? And I'm like, first thing, just get an ambulance if I'm out cold. Just get actual medical help. But touch wood, haven't needed any of that. And I've always said, if, again, like, only worry if I'm worrying. That's the only time I need you guys to worry. Otherwise, we'll all be sitting here panicking, and that's just too much. If there's four of us panicking about that's
Yeah.
not really worthy of panicking, that's just a disaster. So no, they're very supportive. And then people, yeah, like my gym coach and golf coach all obviously know it all and are very, if I need 10 minutes to do whatever, then it's not a problem at all, which I'm very lucky to have as well.
Yeah, and I've noticed on your content, which I loved, that you always thank the people around you, or the course managers, your mom. Like, I think it's such a
Yeah,
lovely thing that you're very aware of this as well, because sometimes we
yeah,
can feel like we're carrying it alone. And like, I really appreciate my friends, because they kind of close down the diabetes noise, because we're talking about something stupid that has absolutely nothing to
totally.
do with diabetes.
Yeah,
And even then, maybe just asking, you know, it could be something related to diabetes, or something not. But I'm like, both of those things are really helpful in their own way. And it isn't just
totally.
me. How
Yeah.
does it feel knowing that when you go out on the course, or when you're speaking about life with type 1 diabetes as a professional golfer, that you're kind of flying the flag for the type 1 diabetes community, as well as women in golf, as well as, sports fans? Like, talk to me a
Yeah.
little bit about that.
I mean, it is pretty, it's not something you want to have, is it? I mean, really, we wouldn't have been like, oh yeah, I'm going to get diabetes when I'm 8. That's my life ambition. But I don't know how weird it sounds, but it's obviously we don't want it, but at the same time, I don't think I'd want to get rid of it, because of, like, it's probably made us both as strong and determined as we are. It's taught us so much more than I think life, if I could have just eaten a crunchy every minute of the day and not thought about it. Um, just like, and just knowing that if someone else is seeing that we can do what we're trying to do, and it's just, I guess, as we've said, just there, although it is always there, then it's nice. And I've spoke to a few other younger people that are diabetic that play golf, and it's just encouraging. Yeah, it's just encouraging them to keep doing it and doing whatever, even if it's not golf, whatever they want to do. There's a way. I always told when I was young, if there's a will, there's a way, and I firmly still believe in that. That if you want to do it, you'll manage to figure out how to do it. But yeah, I mean, just I wouldn't want to have diabetes as an ideal situation, but being able to be like, yeah, I'm Hannah, I'm a professional golfer and I'm diabetic and you can also do it, then it's actually almost a bit of an honour to feel like you're actually inspiring people. As weird as that sounds.
No, that's not
Yeah.
weird. That's lovely. And I think that's an extra kind of guiding light, isn't it? When you're doing what you're doing, like you said, you had, that's when you heard about Steve Redgrave, you suddenly had this frame of reference. And to be a professional athlete, I have no idea, but I am absolutely sure that it takes so much focus, dedication, time, energy, effort. And to be carrying that with you as well, knowing that there are people watching that you are inspiring, like you say, that's that extra bit of like value and purpose that I've certainly found to be quite helpful actually within all of this chaos and mess and the alarms and everything else that's going on.
Totally agree. Yeah.
With the technology, let's talk about that a little bit, because you've mentioned Dexcom, Omnipod. We can hear our friend Omnipod beeping away there in the background.
I know.
No, it's all part and parcel.
Have
This is
you
what
actually
it's
been
about.
picking that up? Is it picking it up pretty loud, is it?
Yeah, but it's,
I'm trying to,
this
like,
is one
mute it
interview
into
where
the
you don't have to
wall.
worry.
It's like if I put it more into this cushion, it'll quiet it off a little bit. But yeah,
Don't. I've shoved like failed pods in the back of like towel cupboards before when I didn't realize you could actually cut the noise out before I knew that was a
pop your
thing.
earring out and pop it in the hole and you're away. You're fine. Yeah.
The first time I pierced the back of a pod to silence it with an earring, it was like I could hear the cherubs like between my ears.
Heaven. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, how'd you get rid of this? You either get your earring out and pop it in, or just, the little needle that you fill up with, just fire an open one and just get that in it.
Whack
Yeah.
it on in there. Yeah, because
Yeah.
those things are not subtle for a reason.
They're
We do
not
need to know
subtle.
that they're going off, but no. So I'm wondering, with that in mind, I'm sure the technology has helped you kind of be able to focus on life more and the things you want to do, including golf as well, but everything else, hanging out with your friends and with Sean. But can you talk to me a little bit about your journey with the tech and whether there was anything that you were ever hesitant about, or like how you came to be aware of the technology?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I was always, whole way through school, on multiple daily injections, finger pricking like 15, 16 times a day because of how manic my lifestyle was. I was like, oh, I need to know before I do anything what's going on. And then, someone was like, oh, do you want to try the insulin pump? I was like, absolutely not, because I don't want to be stuck to something. It's bad enough knowing it's stuck to your insides, let alone having something visibly stuck to you and having to deal with that. I was like, I do not want that. I don't have, the capacity for that, I don't think. And at that point, injections were fine. Yeah, obviously they're a bit annoying and you had to really plan what you were doing. But you just did it. But then I think I was midway through uni, and a hospital in Inverness basically came up with, like, we're trying to increase the amount of sporty people on insulin pumps to see if it's going to benefit you. Would you want to try it? And I'm like, if I'm actually being given the chance to try it, I probably should try it. So yeah, I tried it, and I was like, why have I not done this before? Because just doing that one, like, well, now pod change, but then it was like, whatever insulin pump it was, changing every 2 or 3 days. I was like, flipping heck, this is like, I've got so much more time before I eat a meal. I can just go and sit down and crack on with it. And then, so yeah, that was probably, I think I was third year at uni when I got my first insulin pump. So I was like, oh, I can't snack now. I've really got to be really aware of, what carbs I'm eating and really know how to count carbs, which I'd done before, but it wasn't to the same extent of what we do now. But that's not stopped me snacking. I'll still snack if I'm like, oh, there's a wee snack, and I'll just fire in a couple of units if I do.
Yeah.
And then CGM wise, I was fortunate actually, kind of those maybe a couple of years midway through uni, just after I graduated, that Scottish Golf actually helped me and got a couple of weeks worth of Dexcom for me to try. So they actually, funded it for us 4 weeks one summer for me to try it whilst I was away playing with them. So I was very lucky actually in that front. And I was like, this is amazing. Why do I have to finger prick in the rain when I can just look at this? So then that obviously stopped because they just did it for a couple of weeks. But then as of, well, August 2018, I was, went on to Omnipod actually. And that's when I was like, went from tubes to being like, oh, I'm really feeling really free now because there's no tubes and it can be hidden away and nobody will even know it's there if, obviously on your arm. Yeah, it's fine. But, and then I still was finger pricking until I can't actually remember when I officially went on Dexcom, but I was like, this is amazing. I'm not actually like you feel like you're doing nothing. To the point you're like, someone's like, what's your blood glucose? My phone's being quiet, so that must be a good sign.
Yeah, suspicious actually,
Yeah, I
but
know. I'm like,
I think we're okay.
hang on, let
Yeah.
me just check because my phone's been a bit quiet the last few hours. Let's go and see. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go back unless I obviously had to finger pricks and injections. And to be brutally honest, I don't know if it's actually helped my actual control in like overall. But I don't know whether I blame that on technology or I blame that on my lifestyle. That could be with how manic it is. That's probably the reason. Because I do remember when I was on injections before, my blood times are really good. I'm not that they're awful just now, but yeah, I don't know if they are as good, but just the whole mental space that it's given me more of is more value, I think, than sitting a little bit higher. Just
Yeah.
I would
And the
take that.
swings, I don't know if you
Yeah,
found that. I mean, I know we talked about them at the beginning, but those days are so much fewer and far between, like being on that
massively.
roller coaster.
Yeah.
And actually, I remember a consultant saying to me, if you're sat at 10 millimoles, like blood
Mm-hmm.
glucose wise, all day, like he was like, I'd actually kind of prefer that to you
Up and
swinging
down.
up and down and your average
Mm-hmm.
being at 10. And that
Mm-hmm.
stuck with me because, I was always chasing that high, chasing that low, trying to catch up. And
Yeah.
actually, I think it made me sort of stop and let some of those blood glucose just kind of level out. It's really interesting there what you say. And I think that's a really refreshing perspective because you do hear about these amazing time in ranges now that we have these tools and hybrid closed loops and things like that. But speaking about having the capacity to take on an insulin pump or feeling comfortable within yourself, I went through exactly the same. I was like
Yeah.
hard no for
Mm-hmm.
such a long time for the same reason. And then those feelings you said, like freedom and being able to have 2 minutes before dinner where you're not like whipping out a needle, and
Exactly.
having
Yeah.
the choice that you kind of not hide, but you
You
don't
can if you
have
want.
to. Yeah,
Yeah.
like depending on
Mm-hmm.
the day, depending on what you've got going on, sometimes you're just not equipped to have those conversations and have those questions.
Totally.
And some days you
Mm-hmm.
really are, and they're really helpful and they're really engaging conversations, but like, you're a human being with other things going on. And thank you for saying that in relation to like
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily noticing massive changes in your time and range, but there's other things at play here as well. So
Yeah, totally. I
yeah.
mean, it's given me more, maybe not more time in range, but definitely more time to just try and be Hannah rather than like, oh,
Mm.
here's diabetes again. And just that mental space of, yeah, my phone's not annoying me. I'm not having to prick my finger. I'm on the golf course in the rain. I'm not having to find skin to do an injection. I'm not having to do all these things. I can eat when I want. I can eat dinner at 9 o'clock when I'm on the road if I wanted to. I don't have to then do another injection later on and eat something and I'm not hungry. There's all these things that are just like, that's so much easier. The time difference, you just press a button to be like, oh, I'm now in Paris or I'm now in America, rather than being like, oh wait, if I'm going to bed now, it means I would have to then do that injection and gradually move it this way. Oh, yeah. That's just like that. To go back to that, I don't even know how we coped, to be honest. I don't know if I would
Yeah, but
now.
you do. You
Yeah,
don't know what you don't know, right?
totally.
Um,
Hmm.
so I'm wondering with that then where you strike the balance personally, because this is something that sometimes I struggle with that message of, I can do anything and being such an amazing role model and being quite public with your type 1 diabetes, balancing that with, but hang on, actually, this is also quite a lot. It is quite hard. And some days it is really frustrating. where do you kind of walk that line, or how
I
I'm
just,
asking for a
yeah,
friend and the friend is
asking.
me.
I'm asking her right back at you. I don't. To be honest, I just like I I don't actually know. I think yeah. I mean, people are like I definitely, and because we're obviously in a safe space here, and people that are listening are probably in exactly the same position we are. I play it down massively when I'm speaking to someone that's not got diabetes. And they're like, "How
Mm,
are you?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." As you're sitting there like, "My blood sugar is 18 and I've just been low and I'm now high and I feel rotten
yeah,
and I feel like I can taste whatever in my mouth, but yeah, I'm fine. I'm alright actually. How are you? How'd you sleep last night? Yeah, good, thanks. How'd you? Yeah, but
yeah,
I was up at 2 a.m. having sugar, but they don't need to know that. I was then up at 4 because I then was like, oh, I'm now high and I need to go to the toilet. But you're in the gym in the morning, like, oh, how are you? Yeah, good, thanks. How are you? And you're like, am I actually good? I don't know, but I'm just gonna pretend I am, so I will be, basically. Fake it till you make it, they say, don't they?
yeah, yeah.
So,
And after those
um,
nights, like some days I couldn't even tell you my own name, let alone like
yes,
what I'm supposed to be doing at work or whatever,
yeah,
So
I
opening
know,
that box sometimes doesn't feel like I have the energy to do that. Yeah.
I totally agree, and it's just like, and the bit, thankfully, like, when I'm at home, obviously family get that, and I'm in the gym, and my gym coach Ewan, he is basically a sports scientist by trade. He's done loads of blood glucose stuff in the past, so he 100% he gets it to the point that I'll be there and he's like, "What's your blood glucose?" And I'm like, "Why?" And he's like, "Just want to know because I think you're high." And I'm like, "How do you know?" He's like, "I can just tell the way you're acting." I was like, "Oh God,
Wow.
yeah, I am a little bit high." He's like, "All right, that's fine. Good to know." Um, um, or and it's just having that like, then I can be like, "Oh yeah," and I can go in like 2 weeks ago. I was doing testing in the gym, and I was like, right, Ewan, I have no idea what's going to happen today because I was up at 3 a.m. having sugar, I don't know how many teaspoons of Nutella, etc., etc. And then I went a bit high. It wasn't that high actually because sometimes now I'm aware that I'm eating so much, I'll just take insulin before I go back to sleep. Um, but, and I was like, I have no
Yeah,
idea
so
what's
hard to stop in the moment though, isn't it?
totally. And I was like, so I don't really know what's going to happen. So we'll find out. He's like, that's fine. At least thanks for letting me know. But then I was great, and he was like, "I thought you said you were feeling rubbish through the night." I was like, "I was, but somehow I just smashed that out, no problem." Um, so yeah, you just do. You're probably the same. Someone asks you, "What's it like? How are you?" And you're like, "Yeah, I'm fine." When you're like a swan underwater, and your feet are like flapping, but nobody sees it.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel my insides just being like blah, and I'm trying.
Stop lying to
I'm like,
someone.
hello, good morning.
I know. As you're like, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
all my insides hurt. Yeah, but
But it
then.
speaks to, I think, this tenacity, this resilience that we have.
Mhm.
And as much as, it's horrible to hear other people going through it, like for the listeners, that must, like, I hope that's some reassurance. Like, we're all
Absolutely.
in this,
We're
we're
all in
all
it exactly
wading
the same
through.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all swans underneath the water that you can't see. Their feet are going mental. Um, but
Yeah.
then then there's times though that it's like, you don't want to say it's hard and things because we're still very lucky to be able to do what we can do. And then you're like, oh, I don't want to sound like I'm moaning about it. But, in reality, it's not easy. We're constantly thinking that if we do something wrong, what's going to happen? So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's just getting that balance
And
though.
yet here you are as a professional with an amazing kind of record behind you, achieving your dreams that you've had since you were a kid. So I think extra props and extra kudos to all of us, and you're an
Absolutely.
amazing example of that. But
Mhm.
we're here like the swans with our legs going 100 miles an hour under the water, and you're out there anyway and you're doing it.
You're
So
doing it.
yeah,
Yeah.
respect to you massively.
Ah,
Yeah.
thanks. Yeah,
And you mentioned before we came on, um, that you're going on tour, and you actually said like sometimes you sort of view that as you're going on tour for a rest,
yeah.
because the rest of life gets stripped away and actually things are pretty kind of dictated to for you, your structure, your routine, your timings and things like
Mhm.
that. So I've found that really interesting, because when I've gone abroad and for work reasons, and people have said, how do you do that with type 1 diabetes? I felt exactly the same, because the rest of life is
Yeah, it
back
stops. It's
at
gone.
home,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you don't have, like, you're away, and we're fortunate there's 3 or 4 of us staying together, but you see all the other girls at the course during the day, and you go back, and you might FaceTime, Sean or my mum briefly, but other than that, we're just, you'll stop at the supermarket, you get a cup of something for dinner, maybe a bar of chocolate, and away home to watch Netflix. And I haven't watched TV probably since I was on tour last year, feels like, anything that's drama or series wise, because I just feel like right now I don't actually have the time. But when I'm away, I'm like, oh, I actually can sit and chill. This is lovely. We've had our dinner at 6 o'clock and we can just sit here. Whereas, at home, you're like, oh, I should go and see so and so because I'm now about to go away all summer, or I should go and catch up with so and so. I should go and do this. This a nice evening. I should go and play golf. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh my god, just like stop. So yeah, you get to the airport and you're like, oh, I've got a flight in 2 hours. I'm just going to sit and wait, or I'm just going to then wait for my tea time to come. So yeah, it is like
I'm
that.
on a plane, someone's bringing me food, and no one can message me, and I'm not thinking, oh god, I should have replied to that email.
Yeah, I shouldn't. There's no emails, but I can't reply to your text message. I don't have to be anywhere because I'm sitting in a seat. The pilot's going to get me there. All these things. But then don't get me wrong, I do love being at home as well. So I do love that manic rush of trying to get everything into however many days we've got. But I feel like this year, because I've started coaching as well and things, that I'll be going away and being like, just going to sit down and not worry that I've got to do something in 20 minutes.
Yeah, and I think as people with type 1 diabetes, I don't know if I can speak to this because it's all I've known, but I think we are master jugglers.
Yeah.
And it's just something that we've very adept at, because we have to think 3 steps ahead. We have to carry the extra things with us. We have to know that we're safe at all times. And I wonder if that plays into it in terms of the way you live your life and things like that. And it kind of part and parcel of diabetes is that it is a bit chaotic. I don't know if any of that resonates with you at all, but sometimes 100%. I think,
I think so.
That makes sense.
I think we're used to juggling or changing plans if the last minute, you can't drive because you're low, or they've got all these things, and you just get used to being in that cycle of, what am I doing tomorrow? Oh, I've got to do this, that, or the next thing. And don't get me wrong, I absolutely love spontaneous activity and doing things spontaneously, but I still feel like I need a rough idea of what possibly could happen, just to be like, feel like you're a bit more prepared than not at all prepared. But I was with Sean and a couple of friends a couple of weeks ago, and my friend was like, oh, what are you up to, this week or something? I was like, oh, I've got, I'm starting to do some junior coaching. Sean and I are renovating a house where we're demolishing part of the house, and I need to practice myself. I need to go to the gym. I've got an assignment due for my PGA. And she was like, she just looked at me, and I was like, and then I was like, I don't know why I've started coaching this week, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, yeah, but if there's anyone that can do all this, it's definitely you. And then Sean's like, she is, and he used that. He's like, she's like a swan. You should see her at home. She's paddling fast, but she looks like she's surviving. I was like, thanks. So, and I think it's just from being juggling diabetes and all that over the years, just making it happen.
Yeah, making it happen. Love that. So with that in mind, if you could go back and speak to 8-year-old Hannah now, having achieved what you have and still, with these dreams that you're pursuing and houses to renovate, what would you go back and say to her when she was receiving that diagnosis and everything was kind of chaos and noise and
I would just
very mad?
Yeah, I would probably say it probably is going to be mad, but you'll figure it out. If you want to do something, you'll make it happen. People will help you, and the older I'm getting, and 4 years ago, yesterday I had hip surgery, so I got used to having to ask for people to help me, because I was like, Sean, can you put my socks on? Can you do this? So I think, only then at 27 was I like, asking for help's not actually a bad thing to do. So just doing that and using that, and because people offer the help because they want to help you, they're not just doing it because they feel they should do it. So it's just accepting that and just not being hard on yourself when, you know, if golf doesn't go right or blood sugars doesn't go right or whatever isn't right, it'll be fine. It'll figure it out. Don't worry. Try not to worry. Basically, I would say is what I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, making it happen. We'll
Yeah.
take that.
Take it.
And
Yeah.
I just want to touch on Scotland because
Oh,
I read a
yes.
beautiful blog post that you wrote about the nostalgia that you have
Mhm.
for, you know, the place that you grew up in, the holidays you had, and kind of you've spoken a little bit at the beginning about those school holidays and things. And so I just would love you to kind of tell us a little bit about that, because you've covered a lot of ground as a golfer. Obviously, you know, literally you are
Yeah.
covering roads and courses and countries, but to me it seems like there's no place for you like home.
There's actually not, and I know people probably get sick of me being like, she just talks about Nethy and the Scottish Highlands, but I honestly don't think there's anywhere else that I've probably been in the world that I've been like, I could live here, apart from like here. And I just think because I know that this is like the base, I'm like, I'm always going back to Nethy or to the Highlands, and you can go to the West Coast and you can go to all these amazing places. And that blog post about Durness, yeah, we used to go there every summer holiday for 2 weeks, and you know, we played for the school football team during the summer holiday. We were basically part of the village. We played the 9-hole golf course every single day and went for basically the same walks and things. But it's just like, it used to be so off the beaten track that you were away from everything. Now North Coast 500's there, it's pretty busy. But you were just away, and you were just like, I mean, we didn't have phones obviously back then. You weren't, you couldn't go on social media. You couldn't call. I found out I was in a Scottish golf team because it was in the newspaper when I was on holiday. You know, it was like all these things. Like I was like, flipping heck, what have I got to do for this? And it's the same here. And we all, so many people know each other, and at times, you're like, oh goodness, you do anything, everyone knows about it. But at the same time, it's like you do something and everyone would rally around and try and help you if they could, because everyone knows somebody that knows somebody. And I just love that. And I mean, there's so many of my friends that went to school that still live here, and that's the friends I'm still friends with here. And it's like, they're all having babies and all this stuff, and I'm then the one that's like, oh, I'm going to France and I'll see you next week and I'll do this. And yeah, I mean, Scotland's just, I mean, yeah, people have asked me where's the best place in the world I've played golf, and I'm always like, can I say the Scottish Highlands? Is that okay to say Castle Stewart, Dornoch, all these places? And they're like, yeah, if you want. So, I mean, I've been very lucky to see the world, and I still want to see more of the world, but yeah, there's no place like home. Mm-hmm.
So nice. Love that. The power of community as well.
Yeah.
With that, where can people find you if they want to find out what you're up to, say hello, and get in touch?
I have Instagram, so Hannah McCook 29, I think it is. I also now have just started a golf coaching Instagram account as well. So when I got 2 Instagram accounts, I'm like, flipping heck, big time now. I've got 2 Instagram accounts. I've got a Twitter, but I've gone pretty quiet on the old Twitter world. X, I feel like it's becoming a bit of a, I don't know, I don't like some of the vibes on there at the moment, so I've kind of gone pretty silent. I have got TikTok now. I have now posted maybe 3 times, which for me, I feel like, wow, here she goes. And yeah, I've got a website. There's not really not much on it apart from a bit background about me. And it's all, Hannah McCook, and you'll find me. Hannah McCook Golf. There's really not many of us, thankfully. So, yeah.
Lovely. I'll pop all that information in the episode description as well. But thank you so much for chatting to me. I've loved diving into your world for this hour. It's been so, so nice.
No, thanks.
Thanks so much. And I hope we cross paths at some point. No, not at all. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, it has been. I'm glad we've finally done it.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Type 1 Please remember that nothing you hear on this podcast should be taken as medical advice. I'm definitely not a healthcare professional. If you like what you hear, hit subscribe and do leave a little review on iTunes if you have time. It really helps to spread the word about type 1 diabetes. And thank you so much for listening.